Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the SJ Child Show isn't just about me, it's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the autism spectrum. Hi, and welcome to the SJ Child Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a wonderful guest, the founder of Autism Wish, Lia McCabe. Thank you so much for being here today. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm such a pleasure to have you, and I just love your foundation that you have. I love the podcast that you're doing, so we have some great stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let's hear about you. Give us a little introduction about yourself.
So I am Lia McCabe, so founder of Autism Wish and also the host of the Embracing Autism podcast. My husband and I are kind of running this little mom and pop style charity that we created out of the need that we saw through COVID. And that's really what drove everything, because we realized that once COVID hit, you were cut off from everything. You were cut off of therapies. You were cut off of resources. Like kids weren't even getting accommodations at school anymore. So
and then that was cut.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then we saw like the impact that was having, not just on our kids, but online and social media. I saw how it was impacting a bunch of other children as well. So we basically got into autism and kind of giving back to the community because our children were also diagnosed with autism very young, and we are ourselves neurodiverse. So like neurodiversity runs in our family, and it's just something that's already ingrained so deeply in us.
Yeah.
So we just decided that like that's something that we were really passionate about and wanted to do something more about.
And is it a 501c3? I think isn't that the name of it? I'm not sure if I said that correctly.
It's not yet. Right now what we call it right now is a mom and pop style charity.
I love it. No, I agree.
It's like
perfect.
No worries. It's all like volunteer run at the moment, because we're still trying to think about what direction we want to go with it. So we haven't filed for anything yet, but we are definitely thinking long term.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. I think that it's a wonderful, wonderful idea to help kids. I saw that what that you did was raise money for earbuds, earmuffs. And it's so important to just show the community when you do these kinds of things that, you're specific to the needs that you're trying to raise the money for. So I think that that's so wonderful. I just love it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have that earmuff drive that we do for the 4th of July specifically, because a lot of kids can't go see fireworks because of the noise.
Yeah.
And we're like, part of our mission is to make community accessible to autistic children. So we're providing that. And we also send out Valentine's cards for Valentine's. And then of course we have our annual Christmas gift drive that we do as well.
Oh, I love that. And we'll definitely get some more information about that so that we can post about it here soon. Getting into that season. Oh my gosh, are you ready?
Actually, it's funny because we usually do it a little bit early. So gifts have already been sent out and everything.
Yay.
it's awesome because like you get to see the reactions, you get to see
Yes.
photos of the kiddos, and it's just like, I love it. I love seeing the kids so happy.
Oh, it is the best part. That's interesting. We'll have to talk about some maybe things that we do in our families to accommodate our children, because I'm like you, have a family of fully neurodiverse, and we're not able to live off of society's 9 to 5 rules. Like, we have to bend the rules to what works for us. And that is outside the box thinking that, people looking in would be like, it's chaos. Isn't that the truth? And what kind of things do you find in your family that you are making accommodations for?
Well, one of the big things, and we actually just talked about this in our last episode, because one of the biggest lifesavers that we found is we have 2 children that are both diagnosed autistic. They're both toddlers and they're both elopers. So the biggest problem that we've had with them is this getting out of the house. Like, we can't really go out of the house anywhere because of the elopement issue. And most of the time, I'm at home. I work from home and my husband works on site. So I'm the one who has to bring them to their daily therapies by myself. So you've got 2 eloping kids by yourself, daily therapies, and then the facility is right on a major highway.
Oh,
So what I did finally, and I was so excited to like be able to do this and share with other people that you
yeah.
can do this. I got a wagon, a Wonderful wagon,
Oh.
and I was able to get it through a prescription from the doctor in order to get it covered by my insurance.
Yes.
So I actually didn't pay anything for this, and
Yes.
it's really expensive. So it was such a blessing. So now I'm able to just strap them in, and I can go to places.
Love
Well,
it.
it's like my whole world opened up. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, I can actually leave my house now.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad to hear that. And I'll have to maybe get a link and look at what you got there. I think that's a really fantastic idea to give parents. I remember we got the little monkey backpack leash, and people probably cringed, but too bad. It's better than having our child run it, up to Yellowstone. I remember that's where we used it at most, that kind of people. There were so many people that we got the most reactions from.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it's too bad. This is for his safety. We promise. But yeah, that's really hard with 2. I can imagine. What kind of, what do you have for your home? Like, do you have door alarms and things like that? They're pretty little still, so they probably can't get doorknobs and stuff like that yet, but
yeah, they're pretty
close.
little. So we just have like the doorknob safety thing, and they still can't figure that one out, but it's coming soon. It's around the corner. So we will be looking into security systems and all that.
Absolutely. And we had when our kids were little, they're 10 and 12 now. So that's under control. There's no, in fact, our son used to be an eloper, but he never leaves the house. Like, he doesn't like to leave the house, which is so good for us. Like, he has left the house and gone out like the window to the front yard, but he's never left the premises,
the property
or or anything. But he has left schools, and that's been bad. So, but anyways, what I wanted to say was a little, I guess a little plug for the National Autism Association. If you go on their website, they have what's called the Big Red Safety Box. I don't know if you've gotten one or if
I've gotten one.
And that's a really great resource for parents too, because it comes with window and door alarms in there, and like little stop signs, and has some good things to start with.
Yeah, it comes with a little identity bracelet as well.
Yeah. And, we have the vehicle safety kits that now you can put in your car with the sticker alerting emergency responders that there's a profile inside the car for your child's needs. I mean, I'm so excited because I finally heard back from the Autism Council of Utah that they want to get behind that and help me out with that a little bit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so great.
Fingers crossed. Yay. So what stuff are you guys doing now for the Autism Wish Foundation?
So right now we're basically wrapping that the gift drive up, making sure everyone got their gifts. And then we are actually also doing some free virtual Santa sessions.
Oh, fun.
So we still have a couple slots open, but yeah, we have a Santa who is willing to do some sessions with some autistic kiddos. So he knows the drill.
Yeah, definitely. We should check notes afterwards and see if it's the same person that we see too. We've been seeing the same guy for 6 or 7 years now. And it was the first year that we met him. Luckily, it was in the middle of the day. And he spent so much time. He spent like an hour with our son. He, got down on the floor with him. He talked to him about, I think at the time it was different countries that he loved to talk about at like 3 or 4. It was just like 4 years old. And he was talking about different countries. And so he made Santa in awe anyways, which was this relationship that we built. And so we've had the amazing opportunity to actually see him for every birthday now. And
that's so cool.
So on this, his birthday is coming up on the 7th. It's just a few days away. And so we're doing the same thing that you saw in the group too, is having a virtual Santa, and he's going to read aloud Christmas letters or Christmas lists for the kids too. So it's going to be so cute. And I'm so, like, you feel so blessed to be able to bring these special things to the families. When I was very first in the autism world, like, I can't believe it's been 11 years, so long now. It's like when you find out that you have this community to back you, you have these other mothers, these friends that you make along the way. I mean, it's so cozy feeling, right? It's just so
I do feel like that's the case if you find the right people, but I actually feel like initially I got the opposite reaction.
Really?
Because of that.
In the community or just from your own family and stuff?
In the community, because there's that huge autism divide that's happening right now with like the autism community is kind of just split with how to approach autism. The pro ABA, the anti ABA, pro puzzle piece, anti. So when I first went into the world, it was actually kind of like, whoa, what is going on? Any little thing you do or say is getting criticized. And
so true.
It was just really difficult to navigate initially.
Yeah. And that's why I created the group that I created, because I hope that you've seen being a part of it. That stuff doesn't happen there. Like, I will shut that down. Like, I want people to come in and be able to vent and talk about things that are happening and give solutions, but there's no negative talk to anyone. Advocacy is about support. It's about building people up and not tearing people down. And that's where some of these other groups, I'm just astonished. In fact, I'm a part of them because I want to help, yet I don't want to read half of their posts because they're offensive, I think, to myself. I'm just like, no, there's not enough. I love that about podcasting, because it really gives you that voice and the storytelling to be able to say, hey, let's rethink this. Maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. Maybe you should try to think of it as your own perception rather than the behaviors of another human being that you're not understanding.
Yeah. And that's part of what we try to do, like with our podcast, is we try to bring in controversial topics on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, we have an entire episode just dedicated to talking about all the controversy.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
I know. We put a disclaimer at the beginning. We're like, please don't shoot the messenger. But because I feel like right now in society, just across the board, it's not even just autism world. It seems like people will have a really hard time communicating effectively now, where it seems like no matter what position you take, everybody is just deciding to just stand firm and not hear what the other person has to say. Yeah. And I feel like part of what we are trying to do is find a way to like merge the sides together, create a bridge and like some common middle ground.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And you really see it. And there's a couple points I want to make to that, because number one, with our world changing so drastically into written text messages, well, you can't get across emotion in words like that. You can't, if when you're on these type of subjects that are so raw and emotional, they need to be handled delicately. And when you are misunderstanding or misinterpreting or even miswording things, it can mess everything up, because like I could say something wrong right now in this conversation and say, oh, wait, I didn't mean that, and come back and you can see that my face is flushed and I didn't, and it's very obvious of our communication. But that has died down because of all of the lack of relationship building and things, especially with our small, our younger kids. And you're kind of lucky only in the sense that they're so little, they're not out there socializing, as much.
Yeah.
Like my 9-year-old, who it has hit her so hard. And she's resilient, she's courageous, she's strong, she's confident, but she's not getting those experiences. And that's still like detrimental, in your relationship building experiences in the world. So it's tricky.
Yeah. And I feel like that's particularly impacting the autistic community, because like autism in general comes along with the extra baggage of having difficulty with social interactions and being able to read what the other person is saying between the lines and all that. So then you throw in all this like text where you take out all that context that normally is already difficult for them to decode. And I just feel like it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. Total train wreck. I agree. Exactly the way you laid it out too. It is interesting. What do you think are you seeing for families? Like, what is the biggest thing we can do to help bring resources to families as a community?
I think right now, one of the biggest things is really education. Most of the time when people get thrown into the world of autism, they know nothing about it, because up until this point, autism has been, 1% to 2% of the population has been affected by it. Although new data just came out, I think
yesterday,
like this week, saying that, it's like now almost 3%.
1 in 44 kids in the US.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are going to have to get involved because it's becoming more prevalent. But I think that education, without the education, there just becomes more of that like fear of the unknown. Like if you don't know, you imagine, and usually your imagination comes up with a lot worse than reality. So I feel like if we were able to bring more autism education to the world in like a sensitive manner, where we are incorporating both sides of the argument and voices from across the table, I think that would be like more effective, essentially.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think that we need to, like, for Autism Awareness Month, this last April, I was like, for me, this is Autism Action Month, because I already have awareness. Like, what I need to help the world is in acceptance and education, just like you said, through my actions. And so I was like hitting it heavy on, here's the actions that I'm going to put forth. Like, and I hope that I'm educating, my audiences and my listeners and all of that. I'm sure that they have a much better understanding of autism if they didn't already, being a supporter, so and it's just great because there are so many, just like you kind of had talked about with the on your podcast about ADHD, there's so many components to autism. There's so many comorbidities. There's so many different, it's like a scattered, mess across the universe. And it's like one end to one end. And there has to be an understanding and like accommodations put in place in the world, because our brilliant minds are coming out of these kinds of thinkers.
Right. And unfortunately, as much progress as we make, I still see comments all the time that just kind of hurt my heart for the child. Like, I just saw just yesterday a comment in a forum, and a parent had posted basically complaining about how their child always hits a kid when they make a screaming sound or something like that. And so I recommended, I was like, hey, well, why don't you try some earmuffs or something like that? It sounds like the sound might be like a sensory overload trigger for them. And their response to it was, well, my child needs to learn to behave. And I'm just like, that always
This
hurts
is
my
the
heart.
problem. It's where the problem
Right.
lies. Yeah.
Exactly. Cause
Yeah.
like I have sound sensitivity, and for me, it can
Too.
trigger migraines. Like last night, I had
Yeah.
to stay in my bed with the lights off because of the sound sensitivity. And people just don't understand that if they don't experience it.
Exactly.
So I feel like
No.
building that empathy is really important too.
No, I agree with that. And I think that it's so important that parents, especially new parents that are getting diagnosis, they also get support for themselves, that they also, hopefully these early intervention programs or any programs are offering help to the parents as well, because they need it. They need that
Yeah.
guideline. I remember one of our very first therapists in home, you know, DJ was like 16 to 18 months old, just as little as, as yours. You can appreciate that. And there was no verbal language. It was so hard to kind of be the puzzle master, if you will, and try to figure everything out with, little pieces here and there and here and there. But when she said to us, like, okay, here's what you guys can do to start the interacting process. We want you to do ready, set, go with him. And
Yeah,
it
we
was so
did that.
exciting, and just for those three little words and that like looking our way and saying, here's your homework, it was game changing. We then realized, well, wait a second. Yeah, he's getting all the services and all the support, but we need that too. We need to help, and we need to understand how to help along the way.
Yeah, I actually really emphasize that in my podcast too, because I think that the reason my husband and I have been able to see such great results with our kids, I mean, we don't have them in ABA. We did floor time therapy, and we got some
Yeah, I
training
love
through the
that.
public school system, and we just applied floor time therapy ourselves at home.
Yeah.
And it takes work. Like, I know it's hard. Like, we're both full-time like parents and full-time jobs. We've got two
Yeah.
autistic kids. They've got therapies Monday through Thursday, and then they've got early intervention on Fridays. So like, I get it. It's a lot of work, but it does ultimately make a positive impact. So
Mhm.
we're left exhausted at the end of the day, but it's made huge strides in how far they've been able to come so far.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I hate to put it back in the parents' lap like that or in their, wheelhouse, but really though, it's what do you want for your child at the end of the day? What do you want to see them in 5 or 10 years? Do you, are you going to regret that you spent more time,
Yeah.
doing other things than not just like putting the work in, because those early intervention years, they're necessary. It's like not even optional, to be honest. Like they need that, and that will build up the strengths, the relationship, the trust. And I love that book, Uniquely Human. If I don't know if you've read it yet or seen it or
Yeah, they
anything,
have a
but
podcast too.
yeah, and I just had Dr. Prezant on my podcast, in fact, and so it was so wonderful to be able to pick his brain and to talk about that. And I love the way I feel like I was already living my life that way. I was already living my life looking at my children as human beings with human being behaviors. And how can I support that? And how can I help them strategize that, rather than looking at the behavior like his school did at one point? He's bad. He left the school. Well, he's 6 and barely verbal. So there's nothing bad about that. That has no intentions whatsoever.
Right.
Like that does not go hand in hand. And the perception and things, that was their fault. That was on them. They should have taken accountability and responsibility for that. And that's too bad that they didn't. And I didn't make it more of a thing. Now, maybe I'll go back 5 years later and tell them a thing or two. But it's just like, it's really indicative of how you want to, what do you see for your child? Like, is it important enough that you put in the work for it? And I mean, that might sound cruel or whatever, but it is true.
Well, and the other thing that we talk about is the idea of being willing to have flexibility with that,
Exactly.
because there were a lot of things that we wanted for our children at the beginning. We were scoping out schools. We already knew like what we wanted them to try and all this stuff. And we were looking at private schools, for example. They no longer qualify for them because of the autism. They don't have the accommodations for that.
Yeah.
So that instantly was not an option. But what I did is I found the curriculum the school is using, and now I will be using that curriculum in homeschool. So it's like you just find a way to adjust and accommodate to still get them what they need, just in like unique, creative ways.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing I love about you personally, is because you already are neurodiverse. And so you're able to already have that flexibility. You're able to understand those parameters. And when like in older generations, they have a really hard time with that flexible thinking, because in their generations growing up, everything was, finish everything off your plate, whether you like it or not. My kid looks at a plate of food and gags, like, no way. Like he would have died of starvation or something. Like it's just so sad just to kind of see, well, and so good to see like the growth that we've made as as humans and evolution and things. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, those things are hard for parents to really accept, I think, and really finding the right parenting style for that individual child too. I'm sure with two different, girls, seeing they are two different girls. You can't parent them the same.
Mm-mm. No, actually, we had the first one. She was diagnosed with autism. 11 months later, the other one came around and she was also diagnosed really early. And we actually missed it initially with the second one because it was so different from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Like the second one's very hyperactive and sensory seeking, and the first one was very sensory avoiding. So we didn't really think initially that she was autistic because she didn't present at all like her sister. And it was actually the doctor that caught on to it and was like, maybe we should take a look at her too.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that too, because I think that needs to be a more active role. Like, finding a good pediatrician, or even having just more education for pediatricians across the board, especially with these numbers rising. There should be more of a need out in the community for assessment possibilities through your pediatrician, things like that. Mm-hmm. Like those are things that maybe they should really start to think about.
I know that just recently they added so that now I believe it's pretty much mandatory to do the MCHAT at 18 months with pediatricians. They just recently added that as a screening. Good. And they're saying that they believe that's probably one of the reasons why the diagnosis rate jumped, because they're catching it more.
Exactly.
But the other thing is, there needs to be more people willing to get into the field, because there's really high demand, but there's not a whole lot of doctors out there that specialize in autism, for example. There's not a whole lot of therapists available. So it needs to get down to the point of like, what are people going to school for too? Like we need to start encouraging this as a viable career pathway.
Exactly. And they need to be paid properly for it. These are children who are vulnerable children. We can't expect, somebody making $11 an hour to commit what our children need for them to be successful. I mean, obviously it's an upside down conversation that could take 5 sessions. So
there's so many problems with it right now.
So many. Yeah, definitely. Oh, we won't billboard that one up, but yeah, that's so interesting. Oh, what kind of support can we give you through the Autism Wish and things? How can we support you? Let us know.
So right now, the way that we function is basically, since we are 100% volunteer, everything that we do is through sponsorships and public donations. Essentially, we are not filed like as a nonprofit. So at the moment, it's not tax exempt, but 100% of those proceeds go straight towards gifting children or doing these like Secret Santa or Santa sessions and stuff like that. So right now, the thing that would help us the most is if anyone's able, just going to our website, autismwish.org/donate, and just donating anything you can. We even have an option for like donating your time. So somebody to help us with social media posts or anything like that. And we also have just little things that you can do that are free, like liking our Facebook page, sharing some posts, referring people to our Embracing Autism podcast.
Yes.
Just little things like that, because the more likes we get, the more shares we get, and the more reviews we get on Facebook, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the more attractive we are to sponsors, which helps us then be able to gift more children.
Agreed. Oh, I love that. Leah, I'm so excited that we finally were able to connect and do this. And thank you for your patience and the scheduling, everything. So I'm really glad we narrowed it down and we're able to come together. I will have all of the links and everything in the descriptions. Again, tell us your website again.
It's www.autismwish.org, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Autism Wish.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much for being here today. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely be, we're in contact anyway. So we'll contact and catch up with each other soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.